Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to break down a really powerful argument that honestly questions the entire foundation of modern education. See, the source material we're digging into today makes a super bold claim that our school system isn't just a little outdated, it was actually built on purpose for a world that just doesn't exist anymore.
So to really get this, let's start with a picture. On the left, a phone from 150 years ago. On the right, a phone from today. I mean, the difference is just staggering, right? It's not even a comparison. We went from a basic little gadget to a supercomputer that fits in our pocket.
And it's the same story with transportation. We've gone from, a clunky, motorized carriage to these sleek, smart, high-tech vehicles. Progress is everywhere you look.
But then you see this, a classroom from today and one from over 100 years ago. And this is where our source material wants you to really pay attention, because almost nothing has changed. Kids are still sitting in these neat little rows, all facing a teacher at a board. This one image, right here, is the jumping-off point for this entire argument.
And that total lack of change just begs the question, a question our source material poses directly. Is our education system actually getting students ready for the future, or is it basically trapping them in the past?
And here's the kicker. The argument is, this wasn't an accident. The whole structure of school, the rows, the bells ringing, having to raise your hand just to talk, it's all a mirror image of an old factory floor. The source claims it was designed not to spark ideas, but to create conformity, to create obedience for the industrial age.
So why? Why was it designed that way? Well, to get that answer, the source material says we have to rewind the clock and look at who was pulling the strings way back when.
And this is the moment it all supposedly clicked into place. Back in 1903, you've got one of the wealthiest men in history, the oil tycoon, John D. Rockefeller. He started and poured money into this thing called the General Education Board, which ended up having a massive influence on public schools in America.
Now this is where it gets really wild. According to the source, the mission statement behind all that money was crystal clear. Rockefeller's goal wasn't to raise a generation of brilliant innovators. No, it was to create a huge, reliable workforce. And this way of thinking, according to the source, builds what it calls a perfect system. Okay, let's break this down. Step 1. Schools turn out obedient workers. Step 2. Working your whole life often leads to health problems. Step 3. These workers then get put on pharmaceutical drugs. And Step 4. The source claims that the very same elites who shape the school system also profit from the drug companies. It's a perfect, self-sustaining loop.
So that brings us to the psychological side of things. How does a system like this actually wire a student's brain when it comes to things like work, taking risks, and what it even means to be successful?
I love this slide because it shows this huge disconnect, right? In school, you're taught don't make mistakes. Mistakes are bad. But in real life, failure is how you learn. School tells you do your own work, don't look at your neighbor's paper. But in the real world, success is all about teamwork and brainstorming. School drills into you that there's one right answer for every question. But complex real-world problems, they have tons of solutions.
And that's the whole point, according to this argument. You're being conditioned for one very specific path. A path where getting that steady paycheck becomes the reward for putting your real dreams on a shelf. It's a pretty heavy idea when you think about it.
So what does all this add up to? Well, the source argues it just kills that natural curiosity and creativity kids are born with. It creates this deep fear of messing up, and it teaches you to think like an employee who's just waiting for instructions, not an owner who comes up with the instructions in the first place.
And just think about this for a second. The kid who's got endless energy, who could maybe be a world-class athlete, he's the one who gets told to sit still and stop fidgeting. The kid who's a natural storyteller, the class clown who could be a brilliant comedian, she's told to stop distracting the other students. The argument is that the system can take a child's greatest gift and treat it like it's their biggest problem.
Okay, so if the system itself is the problem, what do? What's the alternative? Well, the source material brings up this incredible story of someone who just walked away and did it their own way.
So get this, here's a guy who by every single school metric was set up to fail. He dropped out at 16, had 0 qualifications, no money, and his teachers basically told him he'd amount to nothing. His first job was literally making trash cans for less than $2 an hour.
But he didn't stay there, not even close. He quit that job, started his own business, and went on to gross over $70 million. Yeah, $70 million. A massive success story built completely outside of the normal system.
And his big takeaway from all that is just so powerful. It doesn't matter what your grades were, what exams you passed or failed, none of that has to define who you are. The only thing that really matters is where you decide to go from right now.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the most important mindset shift that this whole argument is really pushing for. So here's what it boils down to. The moment you take a paycheck, your brain starts to think like an employee. You want safety, you want to avoid risk. But entrepreneurs, they think totally differently. They are willing to work for free, sometimes for years, because they have a vision, they accept risk. And that, the source claims, is a way of thinking that the school system is actively trying to stamp out.
So I'll leave you with the final question the source poses, and it's a question that really makes you think. How many geniuses has the world lost over the years? How many artists and inventors and leaders never got a chance to shine because the one system that was supposed to help them grow instead told them that their greatest strengths were actually weaknesses? It's a huge question about lost potential and about what our world could be if we dared to build a system for tomorrow, not for yesterday.